Guys, correct me if I'm like falling for some type of propaganda here, but after what I've seen on social media lately, I've kind of noticed that America may not be the best place on earth. In fact, it might be one of the worst. And I've never thought that way before. You know, my dad was in the military. We're a very patriotic kind of household. We're also Christians, so we know that the Constitution was based on Christian values, and we know that we have the freedom to serve our God here. And I'm like, yeah, that makes America set apart from other countries. We're not starving for food. We have transportation everywhere. Um, Everybody can just get a job. Everybody has the opportunity to make it. You know, um, and then, for some reason, I thought our government was doing everything they could to just make America better. I knew that there was corruption in the system, of course. I think I've kind of always known that. I'm somebody that really likes to question things. Um, and so I never really I took everything with a grain of salt. I've never really settled on anything or any like beliefs. I've always questioned some stuff. So going into this kind of like thought process was definitely a new one, and I had an open mind to it. At first I was like, yeah, there's no way, like, the propaganda is getting to me. After watching Not Just Bikes, I think that was kind of like the start of the journey of thinking Europe was, pretty good, like they had some good stuff. um, Not Just Bikes uploaded a video like called light trucks are killing everybody or something like that, or these trucks are killing everybody. And it really, left a great point, and that is, our cars don't actually need to be that big, and they cause a lot of problems with making people go into debt, and honestly just killing people, making our lives, you know really really bad. And I was like, well, what's better, just a cheap small car or something like that. Like, America has the freedom to be able to build whatever they want. And I thought, that was kind of the argument to it. um, but I realized it's kind of quite the opposite. It's the people that own these car companies. They want to make them bigger so they can have a bigger profit, because people are willing to pay out a little bit more money for something that is bigger and has like more status around it. And so I was like, okay, well, I kind of see that is a good point. I like, sure, America may have some problems, but we can adapt to that. We can make our country better. Um, Adapting some things that other countries have. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just one point. Like, you have to give me a lot more points than even consider Europe being a better place. Like the court system, the freedom of speech, gun laws, stuff like that. And, it definitely left a lot of questions than answers for me, on that subject. But, eventually I've kind of gotten to the place where I found quite a bit of evidence that, Europe actually might be better. For one thing, Europe has a better transportation system. They have, trains, buses, and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know why you would want anything like that. I mean, a car is a lot better. But I've kind of, you know, was a little bit brainwashed in that category. Cars are definitely not better. They're way more expensive to service. They take up way more space than we need. Um, and I think Americans, like, our lives are, basically like, I want to own everything that I have. I don't want to borrow anything. I don't want to rely on anything. I want to keep up the service with everything I have, and that's kind of the culture we have here, which is, pretty conservative type of way of thinking. I definitely would think anybody who wants public transportation would definitely um, be kind of like a liberal. Like, that's some liberal talk. And of course, my family has never, you know, liked those ways of thinking, and I haven't either. Even after researching on my own as well. But Yeah, there's definitely some great things from both sides that we should adapt into our world. But I think what it all comes down to is the motivation behind what we do, um, and like the propaganda behind it. Because people can make more money doing some things, and money is a huge motivator, um, especially with the rich, right? And so they gain a lot of profit from us just by, making us buy cars and buy houses as well. In like Europe, you have kind of, more apartment style living, um, which I never wanted. I was like, that's kind of stupid. I don't know why they would want that. But houses take up a lot of space and cost way more to maintain. And, we don't really need all that space, but we tell ourselves that we do. And we compare ourselves to other people. We've been kind of brainwashed into thinking like that's what we need, that's what we want. But in fact, that's not really what we want because, when you have massive laid out places, it just makes it more spread out. And when you have something that's more spread out, it takes a lot longer to get to places and it takes a lot, more time to get where you want to go. And there's a lot of drawbacks to that. You miss a lot of nature being so spread out everywhere. Um, and also, like, uh, the transportation we have here, there is no buses, there is no trains. And there's a lot of benefits to trains and buses that I would have never thought. You can get around a lot quicker with them. The commute to work would be a lot faster if we had trains and buses, but because everybody lives in a house and we're so spread out, we have to rely on cars, which means we have to build roads. And those roads cost a ton of money and a ton of tax dollars that we could just be spending on public transportation. And in America, we think public transportation is like the most unsafe thing in the entire world. You see on the news, somebody gets stabbed, somebody gets shot, and we're like, yeah, I'm glad I can afford a car. But people get ran over all the time. Car crashes is one of the leading causes of death in America. And in Europe, they have standards for cars that we don't have here for safety. Like, I think Tesla or somebody is required. I think all manufacturers of cars in Europe nowadays are kind of are required to have like an airbag system built into the hood so that when you accidentally hit a pedestrian, right, um, they have a less likelihood to die when they actually hit them because it cushions the impact. And then you also have uh, bumpable capability in the car as well, or crash compatibility, where the bumper to bumper ratio is like the exact same and same height. So when you bump into somebody, it's crash compatible. It won't run over, it won't go under the car. It'll just bump right into it, and it'll be crash compatible, and you have a more likelihood of living that way. But here we do not have crash compatibility. We have trucks and we have sedans, and those do not correlate with each other. One could just run right over the other, one could just go right under the other, and it makes it way harder to live through that, honestly. Which I think is so bad. Like, why don't we just adapt that to America? And the funny thing about it is that the trucks that we have here, like just the regular pickup trucks and stuff. Those are not real cars. And I'm talking about big SUVs too, like the Expedition. Like those are not real cars. They're not actually considered cars. They're considered, I think, work trucks and stuff like that. They're considered work vehicles. And so they don't have to have the same safety features as a regular transport car that, you would use to transport people in. So, they're used as like, I don't know, like they're supposed to be work trucks and they're not. And the reason why they have that is because the billionaires that own these companies were able to lobby that law in so that they could sell more of their giant cars. And they can sell more of their giant cars because they're able to get more of a profit. That's why they want to sell those, because people are willing to pay more for them. And so, yeah, that's basically it with the public transportation rant. But, our transportation here is just not that good. And it's really sad that we kind of mess it all up for, just an extra profit of billionaires. Like it's not the American culture. It's not, what we buy. It's not, this or that. It's the billionaires wanting to get us to buy that stuff, which is really sad. But it is partially our fault. I mean, we are buying these cars. We are falling for the propaganda that gets us to buy these. The commercials, the coworkers, the status behind them. I mean, we're falling for that. You know, we don't have to, but we do. So it is partially our fault. But I mean, it is definitely. I would definitely blame the billionaires for that, though. Another thing we have here, I think that could be a major improvement on society would definitely be, the difference between a road and a highway, or like a street and a road, right? And the difference between them is, one, you can cruise around the city, right, or town, and that is called a street. People walk on it, cars need to go slow on it. It's like, you're in town now. And then you have the roads, the places that get you from, A to B in a quick amount of time. You can travel pretty fast on them. They have no blockage. They're really good for getting you somewhere extremely quickly. And here in America, we kind of have the worst of both worlds, and they call those stroads. It's basically like you're trying to merge a highway and a road and a street all together. We have merging lanes, stoplights, high, speeds everywhere. And so that just kind of causes a ton of traffic and a ton of casualties on the road. Also, we don't have walkable cities here. It's practically impossible to get around by walking, and you don't want to walk around in America. I mean, the pollution's so bad, air quality's so bad. We have factories inside of towns. We have cars on every single street. High speeds, you're gonna get killed. And also the laws here for pedestrians, like they just kind of suck. Like they're just not that good. But anyway, like just the transportation is just not where it's at in America, and I feel like we should improve on what we have because I think it's worth fighting for. Right? This is like my home. This is where I grew up with, and I want it to succeed. I want it to work out, but it seems to me like it's probably not going to, and I would probably blame the billionaires for that. They don't want it to work out. I mean that's a crazy project that takes a lot more money, but I mean it's not that much more money than it would be to maintain the roads we have. I saw a Not Just Bikes video again on how roads are, mathematically, financially impossible to maintain. They just take up more money to maintain than they would to actually keep them. And so it's a constant loop of being in debt. And so it just doesn't work out. But yeah, there is something better, and I feel like we should kind of work towards that and fight for that because it's worth fighting for. But I'm honestly considering like kind of leaving, because I don't think it is going to get better, and I don't think how ever much we try, it's not going to get much better, which is the sad, harsh reality of it. But I mean, we can live with it, right? I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world. But, when you have something to choose from, A or B, what are you choosing? Where do you want your kids to grow up in? Where do you want your future family to be? I would say that the only thing holding me back from going is definitely family and money. My family's here. I don't want to move away from my family. Also, money's a problem, right? How am I going to get a job? And then another thing is definitely the culture. Like I'm not used to that culture. I don't know my way around. I don't know how to talk to people. But I mean, I'm 20 years old. I can figure it out. It's like a midlife crisis. You kind of have one in your 20s. you don't know what to do, and so you go and try things. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now, and honestly, like, just let me know if I should try it out or what y'all are thinking, because I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of stuff, and I honestly just don't know what to do next. You know, but yeah, if you like these little rants and stuff, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to make a content creation channel. I'm gonna do a challenge probably like over a few months. I want to see if I can get like 1,000 subscribers, because honestly, my dream job is to be a content creator. That is something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I don't really have the time to do it too much right now because of school and stuff. So, but ended up being able to make this video, which is nice. But yeah, let me know what your opinions are of Europe, and if I'm missing anything, because it kind of sounds like it's all sunshine and rainbows from where I'm standing and what I've looked at. I don't know if it's propaganda or not, but I guess only time will tell. I'm seeking wisdom right now on what I should do. I've definitely been talking to my parents about it, and they said I'm full of crap, but like this is kind of all we've been taught in America, is like, well, we're the best country, every other country is just, crap. So I don't know. I don't really know what to believe or hear. I guess the best way is just to kind of feel for it and try it out, do more research, and just go for it, maybe maybe travel there first and then kind of figure it out after that. But I still think I can make it in America. I just know it's going to be a lot harder, especially with the way that the system is right now. It just does not look like a good time to live in America right now. So yeah, let me know, and I'll try to make a couple more videos and see where this channel goes. But yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.